we've even been told that we need to eat little and often to keep that metabolism going,
Yeah.
and that's just nonsense. So there's even been a big shift since I've been learning, because again, that was something that was sort of taught to me. But actually, the more often you eat, the more you're going to get those insulin releases. It encourages people to gain weight. So if you're somebody trying to lose weight, then have a think about that.
Welcome to this episode of Empower Her. Today we'll be talking about how to have a holistic approach to health and well-being. Have you ever dieted to lose weight? Do you know if you're going about it the right way? And have you ever thought about why? I'll be talking to Anthea McCourtie, who is a transformation coach and founder of You by Anthea, on a mission to empower women to unleash their confidence and discover how amazing they are designed to feel. Anthea takes a fully holistic, personalised approach. Following years of dieting and misinformation, Anthea initially qualified as a registered nutritional therapist and then widened her expertise to include a range of other skills. She is also a personal trainer and yoga instructor. Hi Anthea, welcome to the Empower Her podcast. It is fantastic to have you on. I can't wait to have this conversation with you all about what you do and the health and mental health aspects of, and physical health aspects of what you do. That would be great. If you could share a little bit about your journey, your story from what you were doing and what you're doing now, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Shreya. So first of all, I don't always sound like this. I am getting over a cold. Even us healthy people would get susceptible to things that are going around.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's also a good reminder that we need to slow down and actually look after ourselves a bit better.
Yeah.
So in terms of my journey, I guess really one of the key aspects was that as a teenager, like many of us who were teens in the 90s, there was so much pressure to be skinny. And so I, decided at 13, when my body started developing, that I needed to go on a diet. And so from that age onwards, I was doing a lot of dancing at the time as well. And, other girls still were very skinny. I was just obsessed with getting skinnier. Now I look back on photos, and of course I was just this very slim girl who was just developing. And so I started doing what most of us did back then, and counting calories and becoming obsessed with the fat content of everything, because of course low fat was the key message. And that really just became a huge part of my life. Now, I would say I wasn't in the eating disorder spectrum, but it was not a healthy approach. And there were at times that it would be disordered rather than anything actually diagnosed. But that way of eating, it really was my life for say another 10, 12 years. Just things would either become a diet day or a binge day. It was so rare for me to go through any period of time just kind of eating normally, to listening what my body wanted, or even just paying attention to how nutritious foods were. So I kind of had that mentality. Then I went to university the first time, straight after school. I actually went to Manchester to do economics, specialised in development economics. My uni experience was very typical. I smoked an awful lot. I drank a lot. And I experienced depression, diagnosed for the first time in my second year. And I really did struggle with that. And it had a real knock-on effect on my confidence. I'd gone from being straight A student to ending up with a 2-2, which for me was just well, there's no point. I'm not going to apply for anything. So I didn't apply for any good jobs. I ended up just sort of temping in a sales job, ended up working there. That uni mentality continued, work kind of hard, play even harder. Yeah. And so it was this kind of calorie counting, drinking a lot, smoking, and just really unhealthy. And I have to admit, it was actually, I don't know if people might remember Gillian McKeith. She had this "You Are What You Eat" program back in like 2004, and it was very extreme, made for TV. These like extreme situations before and after. I got really fascinated by that. I was like, oh, hold on, this isn't a calorie counting approach, but this is really focusing on nutrients. And so I got her books, and I thought, well, okay, a lot of this is rubbish. But there are some really key factors here. So I got to the point in my sales career was like, okay, this isn't what I want to do. I need to sort of decide. And it was a toss up between going to acting school or studying nutrition further. And so I went down the nutrition route because I thought it might be a little bit more solid.
Yeah.
And so I went back to university. Very different experience this time, as you might imagine. I literally gave up smoking on the first day that I went into to attend in person. And yeah, it kind of just sort of developed from there. It was quite a long process because I was working alongside studying. And yeah, I qualified as a nutritional therapist. That would be end of 2012. And then I've just been sort of building alongside whilst I was working. I was sort of in an admin job. And I got very into martial arts. And then kind of a lot of things sort of happened by chance. I had quite an extensive shoulder surgery. So they said that I couldn't go back on the martial arts mats for 9 months.
Wow.
Coinciding with a tax rebate, I was like, okay, well, I may as well study personal training because I've always kind of wanted to do that. So I started that. Really loved that aspect of it because martial arts was something that I'd always wanted to do, but started sort of quite late. Loved it. I was kind of, still working part-time. And then I was just sort of thinking one day, I need to go on holiday. I really want a holiday. I can't really justify it money-wise. And one of the guys I was working with in the office said, oh, you should do what I did. I went to Goa. I did this yoga Thai massage course. It was brilliant. So I was like, oh, that sounds good. And I was like, actually, no, I'm going to go and do a yoga course. So I did my yoga teacher training and came back and then thought, right, that's it. I'm going full time. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So here we are with your business, I suppose,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And that incorporates all those aspects, okay, with the nutrition, the yoga, the PT.
Yeah, I would really say it actually, my business is really kind of my story. Like it's all those development aspects that I want to help other people with. So, even with the personal training, I've got so much that I bring in from my martial arts with that. Because I'd always been very active as a kid, but throughout my sort of late teens and 20s, it was just like weight loss, gym, what I look like, body needs to be toned, etc. And then when I started martial arts, it just completely flipped that for me.
Yeah.
So I was doing something that was fun. I was learning skills.
Yeah.
I had this incredible social life from it. And as a lovely side effect, I got super fit and ended up with, a body that I really loved.
Yeah.
So I really, really like that approach to help people. Actually, it's so empowering to discover what you're capable of. Like for me, one of the big things that appealed to me was literally just the play side of it. With Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you are literally just rolling around on the floor, like having a blast.
Yeah.
I probably didn't learn that much technique, but I loved the sparring because it was just really good fun. I had to stop martial arts after my second shoulder surgery. My consultant said if I didn't want a replacement within the next 20 years, I'd probably better to find another sport.
Yeah.
So, I was running for a few years, and then I hit 40 2 years ago, and I was like, right, this is my F at 40s. And I started just paying attention to the things that I kept talking about and not doing.
Mm.
So I joined a pole fitness course, and I started a climbing course as well. And I just fell in love with both of them. And again, it's just that aspect of playing. I've found that actually going back to the things that I loved as a kid, like the gymnastics side of things,
Mm.
just that spirit of play is missing for so many of us.
Yeah.
And yet we need it. Like it just, those things are just so fun. And yeah, the physical benefits is great. So it kind of inspires me to do the other workouts, because not just because I like the endorphins and everything, but I think, well, this gets me stronger for doing the things that I really enjoy, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you find what that thing is for you? Because you, you know, I know you found it along the way, and you did have a childhood kind of love for gymnastics and things like that,
Yeah.
and you kind of went back to that. But what women tend to be pretty busy with their
Hmm.
lives, especially if they have caring responsibilities, whether that's
Yeah.
children or caring for their parents or caring for anyone else. Okay. How do you discover that thing that you can do that will give you that exercise and make you feel good and you actually enjoy doing all at the same
Yeah.
time?
So I'm always one to try out new things. And I think there are so many opportunities for you to actually be able to spend time with the children, to do things and find things that you love. Like at the climbing gym, I love it. There's all ages. You've got little 3-year-olds climbing with the teddy bears strapped into their harness,
Yeah.
to, the old boys who are 70 plus. There can be some really great family activities. But also, I think if if you've been inactive for a while, or if you're not doing that much, then I think yoga is such a gateway for all these things. For me, I kind of blagged my way onto my yoga teacher training course, because I wanted that holiday in Goa,
Yeah.
which was amazing. But I had been doing some yoga. I'd wake up after a night of martial arts feeling like I'd been run over by a truck. I mean, I was rolling with 130 kilo guys, so it wasn't that far off, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it completely changed me, just like taking 15, 20 minutes in the morning. I'd walk into the office not wanting to kill everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and with some of my clients now, I like to ease them in to the practice with yoga, because it almost like gets you moving by stealth. It's such a gentle thing. So I think if it's been a while, just discover how your body moves. Like just discover how it feels when it's not all sort of stiff. And we spend so much time sitting down that I think so many of us, we're walking around in bodies that are just not happy because we're not moving in the way that we should, and so that makes us feel tired. So I think start off just by doing some yoga, just getting your body moving, and then just sort of taking that to the next level, just exploring what makes you happy. Because I have clients saying to me, "Oh, were you always really active?" I'm like, "No, I sort of
Yeah.
did gymnastics." "Oh, was your family really active?" "No, my brother's very sporty."
Mm.
Parents were not at all.
Yeah.
Um, but I think, I've been quite introspective about it. So I realised that having done some of these things, I love that aspect of play. I love the challenge. I love the problem solving when I'm climbing. I love with pole just being able to do cool stuff. Like I love being able to take a little video or a photo and just being like, yeah, look what I did,
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I think you've just got to try different things, and just be very open-minded. There'll be some things that you never think that you might enjoy. Give it a go and make it a social thing. I think if you can do these things with friends on a weekend or something, like I said, with the family, then it can become a really fun, healthy way
Yeah.
to spend time with people.
Yeah, so if you have a problem with time for whatever reason, incorporate it with your children or
Yeah.
whoever that you need to incorporate it with,
Yeah.
and bring it out that way. And
Yeah, but you don't need to spend loads of time
yeah,
working out. Because sometimes it's pretty daunting. It's like, oh gosh, working out for an hour today.
yeah.
I do a lot of my workouts are 15 minutes,
Mm,
um, because I just know I can be really efficient in that time, get it done,
yeah.
feel great,
Mm,
and yeah, it doesn't become massively intrusive into the rest of your day.
yeah. There's a lot of, I guess, noise and information out there that kind of tells you, yeah, you should be working out every day for an hour a day. You should be
Mm.
doing this, you should be doing that. And I think that's where people probably get, oh God, I can't do that. And then they ended up not doing anything. And that's the same with the health side of things.
Yeah.
I know you struggled with the health side of things when you were younger in terms of going on all these kind of diets
Hmm.
and it wasn't for the reasons that it should be. It was
Yeah.
reasons to do with, oh, I need to lose weight or I look too fat and things like that. And we're constantly bombarded with those messages now. And it's even worse now with social media.
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's like 10 times worse,
Especially
and
with those Empic as well. It's like, oh my gosh, if I see one more celebrity, that's
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And then now with AI in the mix, making people look a certain way, it's like, what, I feel sorry for the next generations. And
yeah,
obviously as adults as well, we get consumed by it as well. And I feel sorry for, well, not sorry for, but I feel as a parent, I feel my stress is amplified because of all of this
yeah.
as well, right? So just going back to those messages that you got
Mm,
about being skinny and losing weight, how did that come about? And I know there was a moment where you kind of went into nutrition
yeah.
and switched and you gave up the smoking and things like that. But what was that for you that, you just gave up the smoking and, I'm not sure about the drinking, but you went through this complete transformation.
Yeah, so with the smoking, it had just got to the point where I just didn't, I felt very conscious about it. Um, I hated smelling it on me. I think when around that time, places were starting to bring in more restrictions around smoking.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, looking back now, like smoking sections in restaurants, oh,
Yeah.
just I'm the worst
Uh,
smoker there is in terms of I cannot bear the smell of it on anyone. Um, yeah, I kind of wanted to, and yeah, I just over time I was just like, I really don't want to be doing this anymore. It just, yeah, I think you realize just how much addiction takes over your life, and I was
yeah.
like, no, I don't want to do it anymore. And I'd really struggled. I'd never given up and then come back to it because I'd never made it to like a 24-hour period.
Yeah.
And it was actually after down here we have a Derby Day in Epsom, and it's always a big event. So I'd gone to the Derby, really hungover the next day, had to drive over to my aunt's, was about to light up in the car, realised my car lighter didn't work. I didn't have another one on me. So I was like, oh, right, this is going to be the day. And yeah, that just kind of kept going from there. And then in terms of alcohol, that I stopped 2 years ago. That coincided with getting my eggs frozen. I I'd asked them. I said, do I need to stop drinking for this? And they said, well, you could probably have 3 units a week. And I was just like, no, that's just that's not going to happen because I was in that horrible area, that grey area of drinking. That's not an everyday need. So, if you went through the checklist, it wasn't quite an addiction, but it wasn't a healthy way. And I think so many of us women are in this grey area. And sadly, this grey area is kind of celebrated. Um, all those sort of, oh, it's wine o'clock and oh, Prosecco time. And it's like, the marketing is just so strong now, pushing at these women, mums, 35 and over, who are really the people that benefit the most from not drinking. So that kind of, again, just coincided with me stopping drinking. And because I did it for the 3 months that they needed for me to have my eggs frozen, I couldn't justify having a drink again. And actually, I found so many benefits from it. Like that has just been so transformative. I never say never, but realistically, I could drink in moderation, but moderation goes on for a certain period of time. I would get into bad habits and then pull myself back. I could even not drink for a month or two, but then I would go back. So, and I still have the occasional dream where I've got drunk and I feel awful in the dream, and then remind myself that I hadn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I realised so much of my life is things have just kind of happened. I suppose for us all, we might have plans of what we're doing, but so many things have sort of just led on to something else. Like, that me not having the cigarette lighter in the car, it's been an opportunity that I just, grabbed. The egg freezing, perfect. I've had kind of reasons given to me to do things, which I'm very grateful for.
Yeah. I wanted to touch upon women's health and, the dieting side of things as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of women diet to lose weight. Do you think that's the wrong approach?
Yes. Yeah. Obviously, I'll expand on that. I'm very, I'm very passionate about how we view food. With diets, the things that will come to most people's forefront is restriction, counting calories. Certain foods are bad. Just less. Whereas actually, it's so much more of a positive and empowering approach to think about how you're going to nourish yourself. So I don't do any calorie counting with clients. Never have done, never will. We talk about proportioning and portioning foods, and I really emphasize the beneficial aspects of different foods. So I want my clients to discover what their body is capable of through the process, because that empowers you to want to look after your body. That encourages you. You start to view your body differently. And then you want to nourish it. So you want foods that are being proactively, beneficial, rather than thinking I need to take this and this and that. It's like, I'm going to have this. This is great. This is going to help to balance my blood sugar levels. Yes, I want half a plate of vegetables because I'm getting all those antioxidants. So I want people to be able to understand and take that really positive approach, because dieting is just, it has us restricting. It's just by its nature, it's a default, it's a negative thing. So I like to flip things into a really positive approach. One of the things that made me feel so sad once with a client was, I always ask clients what foods they don't like, and she'd just been dieting for so long. She said, I don't actually know what I like. And that just made me feel so sad, because she could only think about foods as being sort of good or bad, that she couldn't even take in what they liked.
Yeah. So with the dieting, I know obviously your approach is it's not about counting calories, and it certainly isn't about taking out X, Y, and Z foods. What's your take on, there's this big thing about sugar and other types of foods related to sugar. What's your view on that? And even natural sugars, people, there's narrative out there. Okay, you've got the sugar that's refined. Your natural sugars that's in fruit, dried fruit and things like that. Even that's not as good, but it's better than the the refined sugar.
So okay, in terms of sugar, this is kind of one of those things that's become really popular recently, but kind of has always been around in my field. Like, one of the very first things that I look at with clients, tends to be their blood sugar balance. So a lot of us, like the sort of standard Western diet, is quite starchy, carbohydrate heavy.
Yeah.
And it's not that carbs are the enemy. Essentially, we just don't really have enough sort of vegetables to take up that bigger proportion of the plate. And, when we start off the morning with cereals and porridge, then, we're kind of setting ourselves up for this blood sugar roller coaster, rather than going for protein-rich foods. So, of course, sugar can really cause those blood sugar spikes, which are problematic because when you've got that spike, then you get a fall. It also encourages that constant release of insulin, which vitally important. But when you've got a lot of insulin being released, then it can be inflammatory. And also insulin is a fat storer.
Yeah.
So in terms of actual sugar, yes, a lot of us probably have too much. And, taste buds become desensitized. That's a big thing. Some people have cravings for sugar. When I'm working with clients, once we get the blood sugar balance sorted, then actually those cravings tend to go, because it's when your blood sugar's low. That's when you need that quick pick me up to kind of get you to functioning normally.
Okay.
But in terms of sort of sugar versus natural sugars, you can get really sort of nitpicky with the details on that. I think probably, natural sugars might have some other benefits. So like with fruit, you've got vitamins, minerals, and other antioxidants compared to just say some other, like say just like a syrup or something. But even with fruit, I would say have 2 or 3 portions a day. And it very much depends on what context you're taking the sugar in. So as fruit, you've got the fiber there with it. Fiber is going to naturally help to slow the release of sugar into the bloodstream. Whereas if you're having fruit juice, then that's going to spike your blood sugar way up. So, if we think about our sort of typical healthy breakfast picture, say from like, I don't know, 20 years ago or so, like maybe bowl of Special K, glass of orange juice, sliced banana. That's like a blood sugar nightmare that people can start the day with. So I think not necessarily thinking about refined versus natural. Think about like I said, what the food is giving you. So if you've got that fruit, fiber, antioxidants, vitamins, as well as some sugar versus something else. So I always think, have your fruit. If you can incorporate it into a nice dessert or something, then brilliant, because you want to have the sweet stuff at the end of your meal. I think there's a lot kind of that's just culturally sort of accepted in terms of sugar. So a lot of desserts were not as bad as they are in America.
Yeah.
But a lot of breakfasts are desserts, essentially.
Yeah.
And so I always think, just look at your breakfast. Would you feel okay to have that for lunch? Because so many of us are just fine-tuned to have this sweet stuff for breakfast, which is actually really doing us a disservice, because we're starting the day on this sort of blood sugar roller coaster, which isn't to say that you can't enjoy, a smoothie or something like that, but make sure you've got some protein with it. Maybe have some eggs first and then that afterwards. If you can have the sweet stuff as your dessert, then great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think also, in terms of sugar, I think one of the things that we also need to think more about, which I actually think is kind of more important than just looking at quantities of sugar, and that's how often we eat. Because we've got this culture now where, very heavily influenced by the $1 billion or £1 billion snacking industry, that we need to keep snacking. And, even when I did my PT course and I did their nutrition module, which, to be fair, I had to grit my teeth through a lot of because it was quite different. It was very much sort of the standard nutritional advice that we might get from the government, which is hugely outdated. Most of their sort of eat well plates, etc. We've even been told that we need to eat little and often to keep that metabolism going, and that's just nonsense. So There's even been a big shift since I've been learning, because again, that was something that was sort of taught to me. But actually, the more often you eat, the more you're going to get those insulin releases. So it encourages people to gain weight. So if you're somebody trying to lose weight, then have a think about that. Our parents or even our grandparents, would say, I never had snacks when I was growing up. And,
Yeah.
it was 3 meals a day, which, as a kid, I'd be like, couldn't just do that. Whereas actually, we're probably not even designed to eat 3 meals a day, but it fits in with our lifestyles, and that's manageable. So yeah, sometimes I think it's very handy to cotton onto one thing. So like sugar has become the thing. And yeah, dried fruit is often marketed as a healthy alternative, but I would steer away from that. Include it in like recipes, like dates or something as part of a healthy treat can
Yeah.
be good. But yeah, I think it's easy to kind of fall into the trap that it's natural, but actually, dried fruit is just the sugar. It's not going to do
Yeah.
you any favors, because you could eat like 6 dried apricots in one sitting, whereas actual whole apricots you'd struggle with.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Definitely. God.
spend the rest of the day in the loo.
Yeah. So, in terms of, you know, I'm going to keep going back to this dieting thing because I
Yeah.
think,
This is what I'm
it's,
so passionate about. So
yeah, I think it's really important because we all think that we need to diet and that's just
yeah.
ingrained in us. And, even me, I'm quite slim and it's not, I don't want to diet, but when I have in the past approached certain companies
Mm,
because they're promoting this, oh, look, before
yeah.
and after. And for me, it's never been about, oh, I want to lose lots of weight. It's always been about, I want to become stronger and I want to
Yeah.
be toned and so on. But then, I go on it and they put me on this diet, a calorie deficient
Oh
diet,
no.
because
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, if you want to be strong and toned, you need to lose all the fat and make that into muscle and blah,
Mm.
blah, blah. And then I was on this, I mean, my kids and my husband thought I'd lost the plot. And I did it. I did it for, I don't even know how I did it. I did it for like 2 months or something. I was eating for the first 2 weeks, I had to eat the same thing every day for breakfast, lunch, and
Oh my
dinner.
gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's hell.
Yeah.
Like that's hell defined.
And it was like a prescription almost, like eat, this is what you need to eat every day for the next 2 weeks. And then you can unlock and open up other foods and, then work with whatever, but it has to be within this calorie limit and so on. Anyway, I just think when you're faced with that, you're less likely to carry on and do certain things.
Yeah.
And I now after doing that, now I look back and I think, God, okay, I understand it might work for some people.
Yeah.
One, being a woman, okay, my body is very different to a man's body.
Of course. Yeah.
Um, Secondly, I just realize now, God, what the hell was that?
Yeah.
Like, why am I on a calorie deficient diet? One, and even if I was overweight or obese or had,
It's not what
you know,
you'd asked for.
it's not,
Yeah.
yeah, it's not about that. There are different approaches. So can you kind of explain what would you do? It doesn't matter how small or big I
Yeah.
am. What would your approach be?
So I'm so glad that you brought this up. This is one of my real bugbears. A, they assume every woman wants to lose weight, a lot of these people.
Yeah.
And B, just that same thing day in, day out. I mean, I would just feel like I wanted to cry coming up to every meal time. Um, so, like for me, I weight loss is a primary driver for a lot of women to come to me, but I don't work with women that just want that. So I have quite an in-depth discovery call, because that's one thing, but essentially all of us want to feel good in our bodies. We want to feel like we kind of deserve to feel. I think a lot of us walk around sort of thinking, am I really designed to feel like this? Like,
Yeah.
there must be more.
Mm.
So I almost think when it comes to weight loss, you need to put that goal almost a little bit on the back burner. Like, let that be the side effect.
Yeah.
Um, and I just think because ultimately I want to help women feel amazing. I want them to discover that confidence. And like I said, just taking that approach of nourishing your body. So I think that information is really powerful. But again, there's so much out there that can be very conflicting and confusing. So I think if you can understand why you want to do certain things that are relative to you, that sort of make sense to you, that's such a helpful tool, and it's a really motivational tool to make you want to make the changes. But also I think everybody needs to be met where they're currently at. So there is so much out there, and my mind's just going to kind of social media, because if I wasn't in this field, I would probably have so much anxiety around food and workouts and what I should be doing and what I shouldn't be doing. And I think that we're kind of starting to see that a lot more. People are feeling very anxious about it. And it's a double-edged sword, because it's great to have that information, but also at the same time, it leaves us feeling I'm not doing enough. I'm not doing all of the things. And I
Mm.
think I like to think of so many things as a bucket. So there's only so much capacity that we have.
Mm.
This is what I do for a living. I am not doing all the things. I'm doing what I can and what I see as priorities for me. And I'm good with that. Over a long-term approach when it comes to both nutrition and lifestyle, I advocate an 80-20 approach. So 80% of the time, you sort of follow things, like with my clients, I'll say, according to your program. Give yourself 20% leeway. It's there if you need it. If you want to have a piece of birthday cake, if you want to occasionally go out to a restaurant, have that dessert, whatever.
Mm.
Because I think it's really important to keep that balance. And I think we can get so caught up in every little thing that we should be doing that actually you need to focus on what's a priority with you. So for anybody kind of wanting to make changes, start small. It's not as sexy as like your big January declarations of I'm going to do this and this and this and
Yeah.
this. And it's great for the 2 weeks in January when your motivation's high. It gets exhausting and you kind of think, well, actually life's really miserable. Whereas if you take one thing at a time and you change it, you incorporate it into your life, you get it working for you, and then bring in the next thing. If I was talking to my 26, 27-year-old self and I said, hi, this is you in the future. You don't smoke, you don't drink, you do this, I'll think, God, I don't want that. No, I don't. That's really boring. That's not fun. That's not who I am. You have to kind of work to where you're at, start bringing changes in gradually, because sometimes even like thinking, well, I want to be the person who gets up at 5:30. I want to be the person that can go out for a run a couple of times a week. Actually, you kind of don't want to be that person because that's so far removed from where you are. So sometimes I think we can almost stop ourselves before we get going. But I think just making little changes just to make yourself feel better, I think is a much more sustainable, and it's a much more effective approach. It's just not about depriving yourself. And I feel so sad that you had that experience, and no doubt so many other women are having that experience where they're just so restricted, because restrictions like that are just setting you up to fail and
Yeah.
feel bad. And
Mm.
it really encourages this all or nothing approach
Mm.
to wellness. Because for me, I would have a day where I ate more than I thought I should have. So
Yeah.
then it was like sod it, and I would eat junk. So
Mm.
it's like I just like ate junk for a whole day because I decided that I hadn't done well enough. And I really noticed that when I was doing martial arts and I had to do not I had to do, I chose to do, I wanted to do a fight where you had to weigh in.
Mm.
And so to do that, because a lot of the fighters are weighing in at a much lower weight than they walk around at.
Yeah.
Now, I was really trying to lose a lot of weight to do that. And so I went very restricted. And that was when I did calories, because I knew I had to lose a lot of weight in a very short amount of time. It wasn't going to be long term, it was just for that.
Yeah.
Going back to that approach messed me up for too long. And it was a great experience for me to have to deal with that again, because it was that reminder. It took me so long to kind of get back on an even keel. I dropped my calories so much, fought, competed, whatever, and then I would just binge. And it took me so long to kind of come back to that even keel of just focusing on nutrient rich foods.
Yeah. I think as women, I know, when we're going through the menstrual cycle and our hormones are up and down and stuff as well, I know
Mm,
there are periods in the weeks, or there's days in the weeks where God, I need some sugar. I'm
yeah,
craving, or I just need to keep eating. I just feel like I can't
yeah,
stop eating, or I'm just constantly feel like I'm hungry. And
yeah,
I never knew all of this, and I never discovered any of this. And I just thought, God, why do I just keep wanting this food or whatever,
yeah,
And in my head, I'm thinking, no, 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 don't do it. And then I do it, and then I feel like shit.
yeah,
And now I don't care anymore. Now I think my body's craving it. I need it for whatever reason.
yeah,
And I know I'm about to come on my period,
yeah.
and I know around that time I probably need to binge on some chocolate or whatever it is my body's asking for, and I don't do it feeling guilty anymore.
Yeah, I think if you can take the guilt away from things, that's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And I'm so pleased that you brought up our cycles, because we do ourselves such a disservice. And I've been so guilty of this, of kind of not pretending it doesn't exist, but just completely ignoring it. And actually, I work a lot more with clients now around their cycle in terms of
Yeah.
um, not just their nutrition, but how we work out as well.
Yeah.
Because there are times of the cycle when you really do want to push yourself, and other times where you want to not necessarily hold back, but maybe just go a little bit less intense. And I used to try to ignore this because, for years in a martial arts environment, obviously I was competing with guys, and I didn't want to get in the mindset of making excuses for myself. And actually, it's not about that. It's just sort of honoring what your body is telling you. And for most of it, like, modern lifestyle doesn't necessarily do us any favors in our cycle.
Yeah.
So, so many of us think that PMS is just normal, and actually, you don't have to put up with PMS. Like that, for the majority of people that I work with, has been a lovely side effect. They're like, oh yeah, and I didn't even notice my period coming this week, like this month. Um, because yeah, there are things that happen, like you said, with the cravings. Quite often it's because your body needs more magnesium at that time of the month. And there's thought to be a link between magnesium, low magnesium sugar cravings, especially for chocolate. Um,
Yeah.
you know, just changing some of the essential fatty acids in our diet can actually impact, any feelings of like breast tenderness, or, some of the other sort of adverse effects that we might experience when it comes up to that time of the month. And I think actually being able to work with our bodies and like honor that cycle is so important. And I'm very much into that with the sort of age range that I work with, that I mainly work with, sort of 35 onwards. If you can kind of nail that now, then you're setting yourself up for a much easier perimenopause transition. And one of the big things with that, like I mentioned before, is alcohol, because that's just so disruptive in so many areas. Yet it's kind of the one thing that so many people hold on to. And I love that it's becoming more talked about, with more people stopping drinking, with so many more alcohol-free alternatives available. I think it's really great. Big fan of that.
Yeah, I think alcohol for me is, I wouldn't say I don't need it, in the sense that
Mm,
it's not every day. I don't drink every day, but when I do drink, I enjoy it.
mm,
And I haven't quite. I want to go through this kind of discovery next year of trying to find out, why do I feel like I need to drink?
Mm,
Even when I'm in, it's mainly in social situations.
yeah,
And why am I drawn to that? And why do I feel like I can't have one? It's like if someone said to me, you can only have one drink, I just think, oh, I won't bother then.
exactly. Yeah, no, I totally get that. And because I used to find, I don't know about you, but like for social situations, do you feel it's kind of for social lubrication? Like, do you find,
Yeah, potentially. I do, if I'm drinking, yeah, I relax. I'm more
yeah,
relaxed. I'm probably a bit more talkative. Um,
because what I find with that, and what I noticed quite early on when I stopped drinking, it's time. That's the lubrication that we all need in social situations. We kind of think, and we never really give it a chance because we've had a couple of drinks in. Oh, I feel a lot more relaxed now, and I'm in my flow. I'm chatting.
yeah,
Actually, that time that it took you for have that, like, that's when people sort of, everyone's a bit tense coming into a social situation, whether you're an extrovert, introvert, whether you're an outgoing personality, a bit
mhm,
more reserved. Yeah, it's I think, I would say to anybody, just try a couple of social situations if you wouldn't normally, and just yeah, you feel pretty good about yourself if you like, yeah, I can do that. I don't need to.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I think, yeah, as women, I know you mentioned before this whole thing about drinking, and there's that grey area, especially with
Yeah,
mums and things like that. It's like, oh, it's 1 o'clock, and
yeah,
there's a lot on social media as well with mums drinking, like
yeah,
making it into like a funny scene and
yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's not that I don't have a sense of humor, but I'm just like, I think also for me, I was just like, oh, this is just, excuse the pun, like really being shoved down our throat now. And I'm like, part of me is like, it's my FU as well. I'm just
yeah,
like, no, I'm not buying into that. I just,
yeah.
yeah,
So, what would your advice be to women? Some kind of some empowering advice if they want to discover, really. I think this whole thing is about discovering you, and
yeah,
everyone's different. It's not a cut and paste, um,
mm,
a copy and paste, sorry, on their journey of being healthier, exercising, and also the women that think that they need to lose weight and
mm,
diet and so on. Because is it a question of finding out, well, why do you want to lose weight?
yeah.
Why do you want to go on a diet? Those kinds of things. What would be your advice?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, I think one of the fundamental things that you can do is just take stock of where you're at. Like, be really honest with yourself, um, as to where you're at, and really dig deep with your motivations, with the why. Like you said, why do you want to lose weight? Well, I want to feel better about myself. Why do I want to feel better? Like, really, Simon Sinek style, like really go like those 7 layers, or whatever he recommends.
Yeah.
Because I think when you start to dig deeper, that, like, yeah, you want to feel more confident, you want to feel stronger, etc. Go for that first. And for me personally, I know that when I can get moving, when I feel strong in myself, I hold myself differently. I feel differently about myself. That's going to be reflected in other choices that I make. For somebody else, it might be different. So I think go for the lowest hanging fruit to start with as your first change, because I like to kind of find the common denominator with things. So when I do follow-up sessions with clients, I'm like, okay, what's been a struggle this week? It's like, okay, let's peel it back. Let's peel it back. It might go back to they're not going to bed early enough.
Mm.
They're not going to bed early enough. They're not getting their adequate sleep. They're not prepared in what they want to do for the day, or their hunger and appetite hormones are all out of whack. That could lead back. You could even go further back with that. Well, actually, I've not planned my stuff for the week. So I think keep peeling back layers, I think, would probably be the underlying fundamental thing that I would say. Take stock of where you're at, keep peeling back layers to find your motivations, and to find the lowest hanging fruit that you could start with, that's going to have the biggest impact. And that's going to look different for everybody. And then, finally get some accountability, work with somebody that is going to hold you accountable in a supportive way. Nobody wants to feel like, I'm going to get in trouble because I've not done that. Somebody that's going to be able to support you, because, there's so many stats to show that has a real impact. And it also, it's not just for if you veer off, it cements all the positive things that you like. We all love praise, we all like to be told you're doing really well. So take advantage of that. And if you are somebody that responds really well to that, great, use that to your advantage when you're working towards whatever your health goals may be.
That's great. Thank you for that. So Anthea, I'm a big advocate for collaboration and networking and putting people in touch with others. What collaboration opportunities are you looking for right now for yourself, for your business?
Brilliant. So in terms of collaboration, I would really love to work with somebody that is empowering women in business, women who are driven, but their health has taken a bit of a back burner, or they're feeling overwhelmed with the health. Because how I like to work is I like to be able to sort of leverage, I want to allow those women to leverage me to help them on their health journey. So, I do work well with women that are driven, that just want to have somebody to really hold their hand, but also empowering them for the long term. So that would be great collaborations, people who are working in that entrepreneurial space, especially for women. I love sharing what I do. I love talking about that. So, I do love giving nutrition talks, wellbeing talks, that, if I can provide value in that way, then that's brilliant. And for my membership, I'm always looking for potential for guest speakers, who want to be able to reach women who are health driven in that way.
Yeah, that's great. I know with your business, it is all about focusing on, correct me if I'm wrong and add on to it as well, exercise, nutrition and health, and that kind of will link into your mental health as well.
Yeah, massively. I probably don't talk about the mental health aspects as much, because it tends to be the physical stuff that really drives us to make the change. When people's energy starts falling, maybe weight gain, or maybe they're just like, oh, my hormones are out of whack. We still don't pay enough attention to our mental health, but the benefits, there's so much nutritional therapy can do to support mood disorders, support our well-being. We separate our mind from the body, whereas the mind is part of our physical body. And actually, neurotransmitters are made up in the body. We need the nutrients to fuel them. So that's definitely a big part.
Anthea, thank you so much for being on the Empower podcast. It's been amazing to have you on.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to Empower Her. I hope today's episode has left you feeling inspired and motivated to make a positive difference in your world. Please follow the podcast and share it with anyone who will find it helpful. Until next time, keep striving for positive change and greatness for all women.